Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Kelsey Lee here, and we are back with our People-Centered Leader series. And I'm really, really excited for this one. This is a new friend, a new contact, and I knew right away that we had to have her on the podcast. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our guest for today. Her name is Caitlin Nisos, and she is the Enrollment Manager for the Wright Foundation, or the Wright Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential. So Caitlin, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great.
So to get us started, our new favorite icebreaker is, could you share a value with us that guides your work?
Absolutely. The first word that pops up for me is truth. I'm really, in terms of personal practice, trying to open up to seeing and accepting sort of more truth of my life and my experience day to day, moment to moment, but also, bringing more truth into my relationships in every area of life. And when it comes to leadership, I think that that's like one of the most important values, to really be speaking our minds and our hearts and connecting with people and kind of putting all the things on the table so that we can really see a whole picture and work together on it.
I love that you just mentioned like the whole picture, because I feel like truth telling is something that happens at like every little kind of intersection throughout the day of like, I can speak my truth right now, or I can like fall back into old habits and just go along with what's happening because that might be more comfortable right now. Do you resonate with that?
Totally. And I think that that's so cool that you pointed that out, because it is like a micro practice that we can use to like reinforce and affirm ourselves as people and our perspectives, and like cultivate self-trust, through sharing ourselves, and cultivate integrity with ourselves, and then also integrity with the people that we're interacting with. Because there's a phrase that pops up in my mind: I'd rather be respected than liked. And so if I'm really speaking my truth, that might not always land well, but if I'd love to be seen as someone who will tell it like it is, and people know where they stand with me, and like that sounds like a really solid foundation for a truthful relationship.
Yeah.
And like great jumping off point for a lot of other like goodies.
Right. Absolutely. That's such a good one. I love that. What did you call it? A micro practice, a micro habit.
Something like that.
Yeah. I'm like, I need to go back and listen to that, because that's such a good phrase for it. Because it is those small decisions throughout the day, throughout your practice. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for starting us with that.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about Caitlin. How did Caitlin get here today? We'd love to hear a little bit about your backstory.
Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've had an adventurous life, and I've done many things that have led to this moment. And it's really cool because I feel like in this moment, actually, I'm seeing how they're all weaving together. So it's really nice to have that like story kind of coalesce, but professionally, I started doing kind of crisis counseling and advocacy and like change-based work when I was in college. And I think that was really like the beginning of, feeling committed to people and like the we and community-based work and community health and well-being and all of that. And then I had like a little 8-year adventure in an art consulting firm for a while that took me over to London. I got to work with artists and clients all around the world, which was so inspiring. I learned a lot. Did my first master's in social development practice, which is community-led social change. And then I got really into working with community organizing groups and like seeing really in practice, like, how do we create the world that we want to live in? How do we do it together? How do we organize a community around the priorities that we have, and like work within the, legal framework, the policy framework, to start to really make some changes. And in that kind of scene, I was doing like housing work and immigration rights and one of the areas that was closest to my heart was working for the rights of older people, and like the idea of aging, like we're all aging all the time. So let's invest in how we talk about it and how we live it, you know, throughout our lives. And then I worked for an environmental charity, really doing community organizing work kind of in that practice, inside our organization, supporting teams to develop plans and make change in the world, which was amazing. And then I moved back to the US and I had my own business for a while, supporting female entrepreneurs with their businesses to have them grow and develop. And it was kind of, I've always been like a right hand to the leaders in the organizations that I've worked for. So, you know, kind of bring that like right hand on demand operations manager, but with a real view and respect for the way the work plays out in the world, and like creating that heart connection between, you know, what we're doing in an organization and the impact we want to have. And now I work for the Wright Foundation, which is, you know, a nonprofit that teaches emotional intelligence, which I'm learning is, or from my perspective, is like the root solution to all of these other kind of issues that I've been working on throughout my career, which is really like, how do we learn to navigate the human experience inside so we can be more ourselves, stronger, like feel capable at handling difficult emotions and being in hard situations, but lead with vision and like deep connection with people, so that anything we're doing has more impact and more connection and more potential to tie together, you know, with the other all of the other things that we're working on in life to make the world better. So it's a little bit about me.
It's amazing. I just want to like take us all the way back in time, and then I have a few little like questions along the way of the journey. But did you have family members that were in social impact work, or how did you come to that understanding for yourself that this was the beginning of the path you wanted to be on?
Yeah, that's a cool question. I think my dad's side of the family was like second generation Greek immigrants, or my grandfather was the first one to come born in Greece, in the US. And they were like hardworking, you know, patriots. My grandfather was high up in the Air Force. And then my mom's side of the family is like older US, but they've been doing like advocacy and kind of civil rights work and health advocacy throughout the generations. And there's some like fun stories about, you know, great so-and-so who like sewed birth control into the lining of her coats to get to the women before, you know, and stuff like that. So I have these little kind of like icons in my family, you know, who've modeled living purposefully and being of service to our communities. And then I was fortunate enough to go to Georgetown Day School for like middle school and high school in DC. And that's a private school that's like very progressive. They were one of the first racially integrated schools in DC, and like really have social mission baked into their like ethos. So, you know, I was one of those kids who was like hugging trees and volunteering to like cheer people on at the cancer rallies when I was like 8, and then just kind of picking up things along the way, like always up for it. And
it's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like it stems from different places. Like a lot of times, at least the beginning, our early career choices are heavily influenced by someone somewhere on our journey at that point. Absolutely. Tell me a little bit more about this aging piece and your understanding of aging. Our first networking coffee date, you brought it up too, and I find it really, really interesting and just a different lens on a conversation. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your take on that and how that's showing up in your leadership practice.
Cool. I love that. I'm always happy to talk about it. So yeah, I think there like aging or age is one of it's just a really interesting identity characteristic. We don't really talk about it as often. You know, a lot of times we're talking about race and gender much more, at least in our current kind of national dialogue here. Yeah. And, you know, all ages are cool and have their own wisdom. You know, younger people have this like zest and idealism and like fire to drive things. And as we get older, you know, there's more wisdom and life experience, and people settle in a little bit to like not caring what people think about me so much, you know. And I think really in terms of leadership, like, I think to make the changes that we want, we need an intergenerational approach. And a lot of us are doing that just in the context of our organizations, because, you know, maybe the boss is a little bit older than us, but we're working together for a common goal. But, you know, like some of my best friends are in their 50s and 60s, and I can relate to them just as well as the folks who are in their kind of like early 20s or early 30s or something, you know. And culturally, we still, I think, have a view that there is an over the hill age, and then we just kind of like lose our zest. We, you know, can't participate in normal cultural experiences, you know, whether that's like being attractive to somebody or going out and dancing or you know, being in the dating pool or whatever it is, or accessing work. You know, there's a lot of people, older folks who have a really hard time getting jobs. But the more and more people I talk to in their 60s, 70s, they're like, inside I feel young. Like, you know, it's still there, that like vitality, that life. And as we're living longer because of health improvements and all of that, you know, it's like we're missing this like third piece, being this vibrant, amazing place that people are actually kind of psyched to get to when they get there, you know. And so I think it's really about like valuing all seasons of the life experience for what they offer, because they all have their unique gifts, you know. And then like from a leadership perspective, learning how to leverage those gifts in how we bring people together within our organizations or the people that we're serving, and not like being conscious that there are that we are working with a range of people, so we don't just kind of exclude them because we're marginalizing people in the way that we're relating kind of in the mainstream, you know, media or culture.
Absolutely. And I feel like people, just thinking about my parents, and they're, yes, feel very young, and also as it relates to work, like still have capacity and interest and zest and energy to put towards work. But now at this age, like would love the flexibility, would love to be like very specific about the, you know, how they're using their brain in the workplace, how the relationships are set up, or how they want to be in community in those spaces. And I almost think you bringing this up, like the remote work, the hybrid work is actually really beneficial to that third of our lives, because, you know, the working part-time is very possible. Working remote is very possible. And I just think it's great to be able to honor that chapter in that way. And I've been encouraging my mom. She works for a school, and she's like been debating if she's going to retire or not. And I've been encouraging her. I was like, there's like, she does all the bookkeeping. I was like, you could get a few clients and work remote and like work less hours, you know, and, but the community element of work for her is really important too. So it's just fun to see, as exactly as you were saying, those around us, like in that chapter and navigating it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're speaking, I'm just thinking there's so much wisdom and experience that it feels like we're missing out on by not creating more opportunities for people.
Yes.
And in terms of individual health, like just keeping your brain engaged is one of the like biggest health supports that we can do for ourselves, you know, in terms of combating like Alzheimer's or dementia or anything like that. Like, not that that's a written in thing, but like, you know, it's just
important.
Brain hygiene.
Yeah.
and the social element is a big piece of that as well. So yeah, I'm feeling inspired to now like pick up the torch on that of like supporting people in my network to like come together in some way and find something that like works for them, you know?
Yeah. It's funny that we were talking about this too, because I had like a moment the other day where I was like, it would be so cool to do like a research study or like a conversation series with leaders in all the different generations, because I was like, there's so much gold, and the baby boomers are all like very close to retiring. And I'm like, I feel like we need to capture that before they go. Instead of like the pushing out mentality, I'm like, let's honor and let's soak in as much as we can while they're still present in the workplace.
Yes, I fully support that. That's great.
Yeah.
Great. And I haven't heard that done before. I love it.
And I'm also in my coaching program is very much cross generations. And I have just so appreciated being in presence with people that are working on their social emotional and like dedicating their time to advancing and deepening their coaching practice in their 60s and 70s. And the more even like learning environments we can create with multi-generations, then it really starts to normalize for us that like that being present in work and just all areas of our lives, like the really turning up that listening ear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Curiosity.
And also building the comfort speaking to people that are older or younger than you, just because if you think like in a really practical way in an office environment, I think one of the reasons why I've been successful and like been invited into leadership positions kind of quickly is like, I'm comfortable talking to people that are older than me, that are the boss, and just like being real and kind of seeing them as humans where they are and holding that, and I think they find it refreshing. And I notice sometimes in my younger colleagues, which I understand as well, like a little bit tentative, like, oh, the big boss, or going for it a little too hard and not necessarily in rapport. And it's really about relationship building, I think, at the heart of it,
Yeah. And now like we're, in the middle and this whole other generation's coming up from under us. And so now we're experiencing the other layer of mentoring and honoring the new voices that are coming up.
Yeah. And supporting them.
Yeah.
Right? To be heard and trusted, because they're driving a lot of the changes that I think most of us older people would appreciate being bedded in, particularly around, issues with climate change and things like that, or healthier work balance, working practices and all that, so they're good in my book. For some of the changes they're bringing in. I want to back them up.
Absolutely. Yep. And I just feel like it's so easy again to, be pushed past your limit or be pushed out of your comfort zone and then kind of like shut down or not provide space for those voices of what I'm seeing with clients. And it's just like really checking ourselves and thinking about what we need to ensure that we can hold space for the newness.
Yeah. Well, that's the social emotional intelligence piece, I think, really, of like continuing to develop our bandwidth to hold and like navigate our responses, our reactions, so that we can really be present with people and just be with them, and like be able to navigate the feelings that come up and understand where they come from so we can either take care of ourselves or bring more truth or direction into the relationship.
So tell me a little bit about when you realized this was like the root solution, this social emotional. Maybe you kind of saw it very early in your career, but didn't necessarily have the language, or maybe you did because you were at the progressive school in DC, which I'm sure they were like, emotional intelligence, everyone.
Yeah. I think it's come a long way into the mainstream since then. So I don't know that we were necessarily talking about it, but I think that they were, it definitely was seeded then. I mean, looking back, I was really interested in psychology and sociology in school, which is the individual and the collective. I think that kind of set in when I did my first master's, recognizing that I was like interested in the interplay between those. And it's cool because I did that, the social development master's, and now I'm doing a master's at the Wright Foundation, which is transformational leadership, but that's really like going inwards to me so that I can be a better leader. So again, I'm getting kind of the collective and the individual, but it was really working at the environmental charity in London where I realized, is particularly in a workplace, like how important the people-centered practices are. The places I had worked before didn't necessarily have a lot of like formal mentorship or inducting people in and training and working together. It was kind of like a top-down business in a lot of ways, or like you're just kind of free to do, you know, what you thought was right, which there's benefits to all of that. But that charity, because it was rooted in like grassroots campaigning, really brought the people-centered approach that was part of their change model into the way that they ran the organization. And that opened up so much for me. And I think the key thing was actually they were bringing the agile kind of project management methodology that's really popular in tech into their community-based work and campaign planning, which was really unique and refreshing. You know, like, what's the next most important thing? How do we rally? How do we make it happen? And let's review our progress and learn from it, and then do another cycle, you know? So it was really bringing in the like personal learning, the collective learning, and trusting people in their experience to come together for a common goal rather than having one manager kind of directing everything. And that really changed my life in terms of how I thought about bringing teams together and my own leadership, and how to navigate in an organization.
What was something you first noticed, like a system that was in place? You said the agile project management, which is so cool. Anything else that you're like, what is this? This is so supportive and helpful.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that people actually took full lunches and closed their computers at the like contracted time.
Big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And if they worked an event, they took their comp time, you know, and it was like everyone, that was just part of the culture, you know, and we, in our planning of work, brought that in so that people weren't expected to, like, didn't have more on their plate than they could do, given, you know, that they were taking a holiday or they were taking comp time, and we only have this many people, so-and-so is out, so we don't have that experience this week, you know. And so sensible planning around both like respecting humans to be humans outside of the working environment, as well as being their full selves more and more within the working environment. Game changer. It's hard. That was a UK based organization, and it's really much less common to see those practices in the US, I think.
And something I mean, if we did a poll, like 98% of us so deeply crave.
Yeah.
And
I think
I'll ask you a big question, like, why do you think it doesn't happen here?
Well, we're a pretty like fast-paced, go for it culture that's, you know, got individualism and like a money-making kind of orientation, very like grounded in the economy. So I think there's that drive to like do more, the bigger, you know, like just more. And that it's sort of grounded in or not grounded in a sense of like scarcity, and like, I think we're so disconnected from ourselves in a lot of ways that there's this like striving for the thing that's going to help fill us, you know, and then there's just less of a culture of kind of like pausing and really savoring things. So that there's that mix, you know, and I mean, we've been an innovation leader globally for a long time. So there's benefits from the ways that we've been historically, you know, but I don't think that we really have grown up a country that's workers, you know, more than like citizens that also work and feed the economy, I think. And it really comes down actually in terms of changing, like things don't change unless we change them. And it's like me choosing to take my lunch and then leave at the end of the day that can start modeling for people in my organization that we can do that. I have a bandwidth kind of limit, you know, and I'll really be present when I'm there, you know, and that's how we can start to shift, I think.
Modeling is so difficult, but I think it's sometimes it's so simple and so challenging when things around you are moving like this and you're trying to move and be like this and staying grounded. And that takes me back to your core value from the beginning of your truth and being willing to be like, this is my truth. I do need my lunch break. I am taking a 2-week vacation doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to get all of this other work done during that time. We're, just starting to have those they're hard conversations. That's why for the first 10 years of my career, I didn't have them.
Yes. Same here, same here. One of the things though that's so amazing and that I learned from an assignment with my Wright Foundation studies is that actually when we ask people, like, we're so much more accommodating and flexible to people than we think in our minds. It's like, no one's going to approve this. There's no possible way. And then you like ask your boss, ask your colleagues, do you mind working with me on this, supporting me on this? And they're like, oh yeah, sure, of course. Like, it's important for you to take a holiday, go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, I think the first step is like challenging those beliefs in our minds, and just playing with it and kind of seeing, and then also taking a stand with them when we need to, but we might need to take less of a stand than we think we do in our minds.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's the habit. A lot of times it's like what we're seeing modeled. And so it really does take that conscious effort to be like, if I really want that, how can I start to make that change internally and then start to take those little actions.
Totally. We're worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Whole conversation about worth and value for another day. I'm working on that one.
Oh, good.
All right. So shifting to your current role, I know you're new in your role. So I'd love to hear, like, how are you setting up your systems? How are you setting up your team? How are you honoring past systems and taking them into new systems? How's it going?
Great. It's going really well. I'm having a blast. I'm having a blast. My first kind of phase of approaching the role is really about building connections with people and understanding where they're at now. So I'm working in partnership with someone, and we're meeting with every team that delivers programs, which to like really understand where they are and what are their priorities and what are their challenges and what are they doing and where do they see there's opportunities, that we could maybe play with, so we're kind of building this like starry sky, seeing the constellations, of how we can develop some like cool journeys for our students coming through our programs and organization. But
interesting.
But it's a neat exercise because there's just like wins all around. Like, I'm learning about the organization. I'm getting to develop my relationships with people, building their trust, enforcing the message, like, we're in partnership and we're here and we want to support you. You're not alone. And you're like the part of the business that you're working in. And again, like, my leadership style is very we, like, we're building this together. We're in it together. So like, you share with me where you're at, and that fills in the picture. And then we see what emerges from that in terms of ways that we can like go forward, honoring the past, like building on what works, but then kind of finessing based on where people are at in this moment, not just where they've been historically.
Building community, step one.
Yeah.
And no one, like, it's a good use of time for everyone to pause with a new hire, like new team member, and vocalize like their current vision, their current state, and the obstacles that they're coming up against. Like, if you had that conversation, once a month with someone new, like, there's evolution in that every single time, and continuing to speak that and think about it and like get even more and more nuanced within the system is such a gift.
Yeah. Thank you. I totally agree with that. And I mean, my vision is really like, how can I play a part in supporting like the next phase of the organization that serves our student body with, increasing strength and responsivity and like really meeting them where they are, but also like finessing the ways that we do things internally as well, so that we're really continuing to evolve our working culture and like supporting people in all senses, and the more consciousness we bring to where things are now, then that's just information in the ecosystem that can be, like, oh, there's opportunity to, support so-and-so by choosing to like focus on this project and consciously not do this project, so yeah, it really helps.
And what do you think your next little, like, as you get to your community building, and I know this is not a linear process by any means, so, but if you were to be linear with me for a moment, like what would be kind of the next little bucket or theme that you would start to dive into?
Idea generation for ways that we can do things, like leverage the assets that are already in the organization, like great teachers, great facilitators, fabulous content, but maybe play with it in a different way to like be a little bit fresher, to connect with our students in a different way, build out more options for people, and have fun. I think we're trying to bring in just some, or I'm trying to spark like a little bit new energy and refreshed perspective for people. So really supporting people to be creative, but not like reinvent the wheel,
Yeah. Do you follow like a systems thinking model, design thinking model in your leadership?
I kind of pull pieces in, like I think I've kind of studied little bits of that, over the years, and it's all in there, of so I mean in a like conscious I'm doing this way practice, probably not, but in terms of just like natural way of thinking and approach, I would say yes, for sure.
And I would say, as being someone in the arts and the community sector too, like that is very embedded into building community and building trust, and like the people have to be at the core of the work because you're there to serve the people. And so it's, once I started studying the system and the labels around it, I was like, aha, like those of us that have been in the social impact space have kind of learned this naturally as we've gone.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think like from the systems work that we do in our foundation and curriculum, it's an interesting lesson around like really, if there's a problem, looking at the system instead of individuals, for where the solution is. And I think that's a really neat piece of like not blaming or shaming people in an organization or a movement or, our team or whatever, but there's a challenge here, and we all are part of the solution because we're playing our roles here and like hopefully expanding and like able to be dynamic people and all of that, so.
And especially when it's a pattern and like multiple people are behaving in the same way. And you're like, okay, well, like, I love that. Asking about the system, and then also like empowering, and I really like are getting at this, empowering the individual. Like if you do that as a leader, you're going to start empowering the individual to see their own systems and start to get curious about that, instead of like beating themselves up for like, I'm not performing and doing X, Y, and Z. It's like, let's rewind and let's also look at the bigger system at play. Totally.
And I feel like you're underlining like one of the best parts of leadership, which is, capacity building and encouraging our team members to like be embodied leaders. We're all leading all the time. We've got these amazing gifts. We all have our growth areas, regardless of what like formal leadership level we're at, but when I have people that believe in me and like will work with me, that brings my best out. If I feel like I'm getting I don't know, don't have that partnership, I'd say it's more easy to like close down and go in. So if we want our teams to be thriving, let's invite them out.
Yeah. Can you say that one more time?
If we want our teams to be thriving, let's let them out.
So good. I love it. You're amazing. This has been such a juicy conversation, and I so appreciate you taking this time to share all of your wisdom with us.
Oh, thank you. It's been
Yeah.
such a pleasure. And
Good.
thank you. I look forward to the next time we connect.
Yeah, before I let you go, can I ask you a few rapid questions? Because these are just
Okay.
fun. Um, okay. Leave us with a few ideas. A journal prompt that you would give our listeners, other people-centered leaders.
The things you're afraid to say.
Ah, oh my gosh, full circle, truth. Okay. How do you like to celebrate your team?
Oh man, I love on them. We have parties, we dance, we tell everybody how awesome they are, and also try to support them to have little adventures, outside of our working environment as well.
Awesome. One thing you would tell a former version of you.
Trust myself, and listen to like the internal voice, really. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you stay inspired as a leader?
I am learning and growing all the time. I have a really amazing network of allies around me who are amazing people and embody the qualities that I'm living into. And so, we support each other to learn and grow. And really, I keep doing my personal work. I've got a lot of growth that I want to do, and that's a lifelong journey, and that keeps it fresh for me, and humble, and then like really just everything is fruit to me, like Marcus Aurelius, but I'm learning all the time from everyone everywhere. And nature. I think nature is like spending time in nature and dancing, like that's really where I get my vitality, and some of the best lessons are from nature. If we really watch like the cycle, we're part of nature too.
Yes. I just saw a quote on social media this morning that was like, I'm not sure life is supposed to be so serious. It's like, I've never seen a tree serious. I've never seen a flower serious. I've never seen a bird that was serious. It was like, I think we need to lighten up a bit.
I love that and totally agree.
Yeah. I was like, that was a good way to start my day. Thank you. Like one benefit of social media. All right, Caitlin, where can we find you? How can we connect with you?
Oh, I love that. My email is caitlin@wrightfoundation.org. That's where I am most of the time these days, wrightfoundation.org. So happy to connect with people there, or you can share my cell phone number as well if that's helpful if people want to connect directly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you. This is such a lovely way to start my day. And I'm so happy to have you newly in my network, and such an honor to spend this time with you.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Yes. Bye.